Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. Namaskaram. Today, the first question I will answer is one someone sent by email to the foundation. They wrote, please ask Michael if he can make a YouTube video about these questions below. Ramana Maharshi, when describing his death experience at age 16, says, I said to myself, this body is dead. It will be carried stiff to the burning ground and there burnt and reduced to ashes. But with the death of this body, am I dead? Is the body I? It is silent and inert. And then the next bit, this person has highlighted in bold, but I feel the full force of my personality and even the voice of I within me, apart from it. Apart from it means apart from the body is the idea, I think. So I am spirit transcending the body. The body dies, but the spirit that transcends it cannot be touched by death. This means I am the deathless I, the deathless spirit. So that's what he quotes. And then he goes on to ask, why does Ramana Maharshi use the words my personality when the deathless spirit is impersonal? Does my personality survive ego death when it is swallowed by the true self? What exactly is this my personality that Sri Ramana is referring to that survived his death experience? The particular passage he quotes here, the exact wording quoted here is the wording used by Osborne in the biography he wrote of Bhagavan, Ramana Maharshi and the Path of Self-Knowledge. This is, much of it is based on, and particularly this passage, is based on what is written in Self-Realization, which is the first a book-length prose biography of Bhagavan. It was published about 1930 or so, maybe 1931 or 32, I'm not sure, in the early 1930s anyway. And B.V. Narasimha Swami, this particular sentence, Osborne has slightly changed the wording, because what B.V. Narasimha Swami wrote was, this body is silent and inert, but I feel the full force of my personality and even the sound I within myself, apart from the body. These are not the exact words of Bhagavan. Bhagavan from time to time spoke about his death experience, and he described it. He wouldn't always have used exactly the same words, but generally he described it in using more or less the same words. And he would not have said, I feel the full force of my personality. I believe that what Bhagavan would originally have said is, I am, well, I think the most accurate account of what Bhagavan typically said when describing this is the account that Sadhu Om has recorded in Sri Ramana Vari, that is the Tamil original of the Path of Sri Ramana. So I'll just read my translation of that portion. That is, most of the Path of Sri Ramana is not my translation, but this particular portion I translated because it is so important what Bhagavan said. How Bhagavan described it, but this is his description, and Bhagavan made it very clear, but though he described it in so many words, all this actually happened in an instant. It wasn't, in order to give us pointers to help us in the practice of self-investigation, Bhagavan described it in this way. But it actually, as he made clear, all this happened without any thought and therefore without any words. But how he describes it in words was, all right, death has come. What is death? what is dying? The body is going to die. Let it die. Resolving thus, closing the lips tightly, remaining like a corpse without speech and breath, when observing, what appeared clearly within was as follows. One thing to note about this, but I'm just interrupting what I was reading. One thing to note about this, in Tamil, it is possible to describe things in a very impersonal way. There's a particular very commonly used form of verbs in Tamil. Though the form of the verb is active, it's used without any, verbs can be used without any explicit subject. So that it's neither active voice nor passive voice. It's a type of middle voice. So it's in English, if we want to talk about an action without saying, specifying who is the doer of action, we have to use the passive voice. But in Tamil, they can use the active voice in the same way without specifying the subject. So Bhagavan often spoke in this way. So whereas in the English account, it's full of I. Bhagavan wasn't saying I. He was just, for example, he didn't say, when I observed, he said, Gavanita Podu. That means when observing. So in Tamil, it's possible to talk without specifying the subject, and that enabled Bhagavan to describe this experience, and not only on this occasion, not only when describing this occasion, but I mean, often when Bhagavan spoke, he spoke in a very impersonal way. So that's so though he does use the pronoun nan, I, when describing it, he's talking about I in the sense of investigating I, not that I did this. So it's this is it enabled Bhagavan to express this in a far more nuanced way than it is given in most of the English biographies. So anyway, as I said, what Bhagavan said is resolving thus, closing the lips tightly, remaining like a corpse without speech and breath, when observing, what appeared clearly within was as follows. This body has died. Now it will be taken to the cremation ground and burnt. It will become ashes. All right, but with the destruction of this body, am I also destroyed? Is this body I? Although this body lies as a corpse, devoid of speech and breath, I certainly exist without being obstructed in the least by this death. My being continues to shine clearly without any obstruction. How Sadhu Om worded that in Tamil, and this is more or less how Bhagavan would have said it. Enadu irupu. Enadu irupu means my being. Tade indri, without obstruction, nandrai, very well, very clearly. Vilangi kondirukirade means that implies it continues to shine. That kondiru implies a continuity of an action, so that shining continues. My being continues to shine clearly without any obstruction. I think it is this idea, but Bhagavan expressed in this way, that had been was interpreted by B.V. Narasimha Swami as I still feel the full force of my personality. It's that obviously there's no personality there when Bhagavan is just talking about his being. So for being, there's no personality. Personality, only when we rise as ego, we identify ourselves as a body, therefore as a person, and therefore for that body / person that we take ourselves to be, there is a personality. But what Bhagavan is talking about here is about the complete destruction of ego, which is the false identification, I am this body. So Bhagavan would not have said, he would never have said, I still feel the full force of my personality. What he said is, my being continues to shine clearly without any obstruction. And then, according to the wording given by Sadhu Om, Bhagavan continues, therefore, this body which dies is not I. I am only the indestructible I. In Bhiva Swami's account, he uses the word spirit often. He uses spirit with a small s. Osborne has changed it into spirit with a capital S. But there's no exact word for spirit in Tamil. The closest probably to spirit in Tamil would be the word Avi. But Avi means, the basic meaning of Avi is breath. But by extension, it comes on to mean the soul. Like Atman, the original, the Atman is derived from a term that means breath, and therefore comes to mean life, and therefore comes to mean soul, and therefore ultimately comes to mean oneself. So words do not always represent what they are derived from. The way they are used is not always according to their etymological meaning. So Bhagavan may have used the word Atman, he may have just used the word I. Sadhu Om has put it very simply. This is how Bhagavan often used to express things. Nan arivatra nane. I am only the indestructible I. That is, Bhagavan isn't talking about anything other than I, but in so many places, in Uladu Napadu, Upadeshundia, Amavide, and in so many other places, Bhagavan uses the term nan, or in Sanskrit, aham. That means I am I. That is, now we wrongly identify ourselves as I am this body. But according to Bhagavan, I am this or I am that is a false identification, because we're identifying ourselves with something other than ourselves. But our true identity is only I. So who am I? I am I. I'm nothing other than I. So this is what what became clear to when Bhagavan turned his attention what became clear is, I am only I, and that I is indestructible. So I am only the indestructible I. Amongst all things, I alone am the real substance. The term in Sadhu Om used in Tamil, which is what Bhagavan would have said, unmayana porol, or may porol, that the real substance, what actually exists. Ibudalo, as for this body, Sava Kuriyadu, it is subject to death. That we all know the body is subject to death. I who transcend the body and what lives eternally. Even this death that has come cannot touch me. That's what Bhagavan described. And then he said, thus it shone plainly. That is it. This all became very clear to him. That's why he described it. It shone plainly. Nidasanamaha vilangitru. And then Bhagavan went on to say, with that, the fear of death that had arisen at the beginning disappeared, never to return. And all these were experienced only as direct awareness, pratyaksha, not as mere thoughts. From that time, my Irupunavu means being awareness, Satchit, which transcended the body, has always continued as the same one single nature, or Tanmayai. Such were Bhagavan's words. And Sadhu Om goes on to say, although Bhagavan in later times, on many occasions, gave us an account of the foregoing, he always insisted, All this happened in a split second as direct experience without any activity of mind or speech. So why did Bhagavan describe it in so many words? To help, to give us pointers to help us in the practice of self-investigation. That is, the practice of self-investigation is a very, very simple practice. It's simply a matter of turning our attention away from all other things, away from all objects or phenomena, back towards ourself, the subject. That's all there is to it. Focusing on what knows rather than anything that is known. It's a very, very simple practice, but it's also a very subtle practice. It cannot be adequately expressed in words. When Bhagavan defined what he meant by Atma Vichara in Nana, how he described it is, there's a sentence in Nana, in the 16th paragraph of Nana, Bhagavan says, Sada kalamum manate atmavil vetirupikutan atma vicharam entrupaya. That literally means the name Atma Vichara is only for always keeping the mind on oneself, on Atman, that means, on what we actually are. This isn't a normal way we would express it in. We talk about a name for something in English, but we don't usually say the name is for this. But that's the sentence structure. But what that implies is the name Atmavichara refers only to always keeping the mind on oneself. Keeping the mind on oneself means, when we talk about putting the mind on something, we mean putting our attention on it. So attending to ourselves, to oneself, that alone is Atma Vichara. And that is what Bhagavan is describing here. In this, well, the question I was asked was on the wording in Osborne's book. That is, there are two problems in that sentence. Not only is this wording, I feel the full force of my personality, very misleading and not something that Bhagavan would have said. But the other thing is, and even the voice of I within me. What does it mean, the voice of I? What Bibi Narasimha Swami had written was the sound I. But is I a sound? Obviously, I isn't a sound. The word I, if we speak the word I, then it becomes a sound. But what the word I refers to is not a sound. Just like if we say the word apple, that word apple becomes a sound when we say it. But does that mean an apple is a sound? No, we wouldn't say the sound. If you say the sound apple, you're talking only about the sound of the word apple. So it makes no sense for Bhagavan to say, how exactly is it put here in self-realization? But I feel the full force of my personality and even the sound I within myself. There's no such thing as the sound I. I mean, of course, there is a sound I if we say it aloud, but that is not what Bhagavan is talking about. What Bhagavan is talking about is about the shining of I. So obviously Osborne wasn't satisfied with this sound I, so he changed it to the voice of I. But even the voice of I has no meaning. I think what Bhagavan may possibly have said, he may have spoken about the nananam spuripu, or the aham spuripu. That is, spuripu or sporana comes from the word sporana in Sanskrit and spuripu in Tamil comes from a Sanskrit verbal root, spore. Spore means, the basic meaning of spore is to shine, but it's used in a broad sense. Anything that shines or makes itself known in any way is just the action of making itself known is called spore. So the word sporana can in some cases refer to a vibration, because a vibration is something that makes itself known. Flashing can also be called sporana. When Bhagavan talks about sporana, the sporana I, he means the clarity of self-awareness. That's what Bhagavan means by the eye smarana. So Bhagavan may have said, aham spuripu, the shining of eye, was it was clearly known. So that's possibly what Bhagavan, that possibly the term Bhagavan may have used. Bibi Narasimha Swami would have interpreted the word spuripu to mean sound, and so he put the sound eye. And Osborne, who felt that sound is not correct, would have put the voice eye. But that is not what Bhagavan meant. He simply meant that clarity of self-awareness. So he didn't talk about where I feel the full force of my personality. He simply said, my being is clearly shining. And that the shining of I is clearly known. That is what Bhagavan would have said. But people, this is a problem not only with this particular recording, with many of the things that have been recorded of what Bhagavan has said. That is, a lot of the recordings were recorded in English, though Bhagavan spoke in Tamil. So they're not the exact words of Bhagavan. And if we just think for a moment, supposing you listen to a conversation for some time, so maybe one person speaking or two people conversing, if you listen for some time, if afterwards you try to record what was said, you won't remember every word that was said. What you remember is the general impression that those words had upon you. So you will record what you remember of what was said. And what you remember will, of course, be influenced by how you understood it. If someone is talking about something that you don't understand, that you misunderstand, what you will record is not what that person actually said, but what you misunderstood. So I think this is people. We all see Bhagavan through our own colored glasses. None of us know Bhagavan as he actually is until we know ourselves as we actually are. Only when we know ourselves as we actually are and thereby lose ourselves completely in what we actually are, that alone is knowing Bhagavan. So long as we have a mind, so long as we rise as ego, we see Bhagavan as a person. And we see Bhagavan through the colored glasses of our own understanding. This is why any recording of what Bhagavan said, we have to take with a pinch of salt. Of course, the best recordings are made by those people who are most well attuned to Bhagavan. For example, Nana, though Bhagavan later himself rewrote it in the form of an essay, the original form of Nana was recorded by Shiva Prakasham Pillai. And because he had a pure mind and he was very much attuned to Bhagavan's teachings, even before knowing what Bhagavan had come to teach, the first question he asked Bhagavan was, Swami, who am I? So that shows how well attuned he was to Bhagavan, even at the time he first came to Bhagavan. So he recorded what Bhagavan told him pretty accurately, because later when Bhagavan rewrote what Shiva Prakasham Pillai had recorded, when Bhagavan rewrote it in the form of an essay, he did make changes. He did remove some things. He did change the wording in some places, but by and large, what Bhagavan wrote in the essay is at least 90%, more than 90%, probably 95%, what Shiva Prakasham Pillai had recorded. That means what Shiva Prakasham Pillai had recorded was very accurate. Likewise, Murugana recorded Bhagavan's teachings in Guruvasa Kukovai and also in many of his other poems in Padamalai and so on. He's often referring to words of actual words spoken by Bhagavan. Because Murugana is so well attuned to Bhagavan, he can record Bhagavan very accurately. But many of the people who have recorded Bhagavan's teachings or accounts of Bhagavan's life, they don't have such a clear understanding of what Bhagavan is talking about. So when Bhagavan describes his death experience, Bhagavan is putting in words something that is beyond words. So he worded it in a very careful and nuanced way. So if someone is not able to understand what Bhagavan is saying, of course, they'll put it in their own words and it'll come out like this. I feel with full force of my personality. But from this, we can clearly see, I mean, anyone who has even a little understanding of Bhagavan teachings, if they read this, but I feel the full force of my personality, and even the sound I or the voice of I within me, anyone with any even a little bit of understanding of Bhagavan's teaching will feel this doesn't feel right. Why would Bhagavan, I mean, as this person asked, why would Bhagavan use the word my personality? It makes no sense. But it obviously made sense to B.V. Narasimha Swami. That's why he recorded it in that way. That's how he understood it. But we have to take what Bhagavan says with a pinch. I mean, we have to take what people have recorded of what Bhagavan has said with a pinch of salt. If we want to understand Bhagavan's teachings clearly and reliably, we are very fortunate that Bhagavan left us a record of his teachings in his own words. That is, he wrote he wrote Nana, that's the main prose work he wrote. He also wrote Uladu Napadu, Upadeshundia, Anma Bide, Ekama Panchakam, Arunatya Stuti Panchakam. Or Bhagavan didn't write a lot, but what he did write in these few short works composed by Bhagavan, he's packed all that we need to understand about his teachings. Of course, when we first read works like Nana or Lidunapti or such works, we won't understand them perfectly when we first read them, but we'll understand something. And as we put it into practice and go deeper and deeper in trying to follow the path that Bhagavan has so clearly shown us, the meaning and implication of his words will become clearer and clearer to us. So, as I say, what we can rely upon most of all is Bhagavan's own original writings. Second to that, we've got what Murugana and Shiv Prakasham Pillai have recorded. After that, all these other books that purport to have recorded what Bhagavan said, these books we have to take with a pinch of salt. So I hope this is an adequate answer to that question. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention in this context regarding the way this Bhagavan's account of his death experience and his state after the death experience. There's one other thing that was recorded by B.V. Narasimha Swami. I don't think Osborne has referred to this, but there's talking about how Bhagavan was, Bhagavan describing how he was in the weeks after this death experience. B.V. Narasimha Swami has recorded, oftentimes I would sit alone by myself, especially in a posture suitable for meditation, close my eyes and lose myself in the all-absorbing concentration of myself, on the spirit, current or force, within brackets avesam, which constituted myself. This word avesam that he recorded here has spawned some misunderstanding. That is, it's not very clear the way B.V. Narasimha Swami has placed the word here, what exactly avesam is referring to, because he puts the word avesam after force, but avesam doesn't mean force. That is on the spirit, current, or force, avesam, which constituted myself. The word avesam, the basic meaning of avesam is entering or occupying. So one of the common uses of the word avesam, if your mind is wholly absorbed in something, if you're completely devoted to something, that is called avesam. That is, you enter into something completely. You fix your whole mind on something. So avesam can be described, can be a description of a state of meditation when you're wholly absorbed in whatever it is you're meditating on. Bhagavan has clearly said here, he was meditating on himself. So he was completely absorbed in himself. That is the significance of the word avesam there. However, the word abesam, because it means entry or occupation, is also used colloquially, often to refer to a demonic possession. If a demon possesses you, or as people believe that you can be possessed by a demon, that demon has entered you and has occupied you. That is also called abesam. So because Bhimanasri Swami has used this word here, it seems in some other accounts, it has been interpreted, but Bhagavan said that he felt he had been possessed by some sort of spirit, because he uses the word spirit here, but what he means by spirit is I think what Bibi Narasimha Swami, when he's using the word spirit, he's probably referring to Atman, or possibly Swarupa, our own real nature. That's what is meant by spirit in that context. But spirit in English can also mean like an evil spirit, a demon, something that possesses you. So it seems that in, I don't know whether this is, Yogi Ramaya was a devotee who wrote Bhagavan's biography in Telugu. And he based that biography on the earliest biography, which was B.V. Narasimha Swami. So he has used the word abesam in his Telugu biography of Bhagavan. Whether it was he who misinterpreted it or someone who has translated what he said has misinterpreted it, but there are some accounts that imply that Bhagavan was saying that he felt like he was possessed by some spirit. That is not at all what Bhagavan meant. When he used the word abesam here, the wording that Bibi Narasimha Swami wrote was, as Bhagavan saying, I would lose myself in the all-absorbing concentration of myself. Abesam refers to that all-absorbing concentration. That is that when Bhagavan was fully absorbed in himself. That is what abesam means. It doesn't mean that some other thing had come and possessed Bhagavan. But in this way, there's a lot of confusion. I remember when many years ago, when David Godman was, it was about the time he was doing he was preparing for Be As You Are, and he was often consulting me and asking me for translations of things. I remember at that time he told me he had come across some, he was not, at that time David was editor of the Mountain Path, and he was also the ashram librarian. And the ashram library was very small in those days. It was just in the room at the entrance of the cowshed in the ashram. There was a small room at the side. In that room, that was the library in those days. But anyway, David came across this a manuscript, which I think was a translation of, it was either some notes made by Yogi Ramaya in English, or it was a translation of Yogi Ramaya's biography. In this, it was in what David came across, he found this word abesam, but seemed to be interpreted as if Bhagavan felt he was possessed. So David asked me what this word abesam meant. In those days, it was a word I wasn't familiar with. So I asked Sadhu Om what abesam meant. And Sadhu Om explained to me, more or less as I've explained now, but abesam means to enter or occupy. I said, but it seems it's been interpreted, but Bhagavan talked about abesam. Sadhu Om said, yes, when Bhagavan talks about, he meant he was completely absorbed in that, can't even say meditation, because Bhagavan, he was completely absorbed in himself. That is what Bhagavan meant by abesam, that state of being completely absorbed in himself. But I then said, it seems from some of the manuscripts that David has found, but people have taken it to mean that Bhagavan was possessed by something. And Sadhu Om said, that's a very, very he said it's a very silly interpretation, because the word abesam can mean being possessed by a demon, but that's not what Bhagavan is talking about. It's a complete misinterpretation. So I then explained that to David. I can't remember. David, I think, wrote something about it. I can't remember. That was a long time ago. I think David wrote something in the Mountain Path about it. But what Bhima Narasimha Swami has recorded is not wrong. It's just not very clear. But someone else has misinterpreted what he said and taken it to mean that Bhagavan was saying that he felt as if he was possessed by some. Obviously, they wouldn't have taken it that Bhagavan was possessed by an evil spirit, but something had possessed Bhagavan. Nothing had possessed Bhagavan. Bhagavan, that is, when at that time when he had that death experience, his attention turned within, and by turning his attention within, he as ego, as a separate jiva, merged completely and lost himself in the infinite ocean of pure awareness, which is Atma Swarupa, our own real nature. So there wasn't any other thing to come and possess Bhagavan. Bhagavan lost himself completely in his own reality. But people who don't understand what Bhagavan is talking about, who don't understand Bhagavan's teaching, come to all sorts of imaginations. I mean, it goes even as absurd of taking it that Bhagavan felt he was possessed by something. No, he wasn't possessed by anything. He was completely absorbed in himself, that's all. So I hope I've adequately answered the question asked by this person, and I hope this also, I want you also to take this opportunity to clear up this confusion that is there in some books about the term abesam that Bhagavan seems to have used in this context.
I suppose the ultimate being possessed him ultimately. In that sense, you could say he was possessed.
Yeah, but that wasn't the sense in which Bhagavan meant. Even from this wording of Bhima Narasimha Swami, it's very clear Bhagavan is using the word abesam in the sense of, he said, all-absorbing concentration on that myself. That means he was totally absorbed in himself. That was, in that sense, he used the word abesam. But because Bhima Narasimha Swami used the word spirit, someone who has misinterpreted and took it, Bhagavan was possessed by some spirit. This is why I say we have anything we read, recordings of Bhagavan's teachings or recordings of about his life, we have to take everything with a pinch of salt. We have to try to evaluate it on the basis of his teachings. Is this in accordance with Bhagavan's teachings or not? If it's not in accordance with Bhagavan's teaching, we shouldn't give weight to it. So obviously saying, I feel the full force of my personality within me was not that's not at all in accordance with Bhagavan's teaching. Because according to Bhagavan, what happened at that time, ego was completely destroyed. And when ego is destroyed, everything is destroyed along with it. What remains is what always is, namely our own real nature, Atma Swarupa, pure Satchit.
Do you want to tackle the next question?
Yes.
I think, this is the one that came by email to the foundation. How can I effectively concentrate on the self or Brahman? It is clear that this should be accomplished effortlessly, in brackets, without doing. Should I be simply realizing that all is one, that everything is an extension of the self, in brackets, which is me, question mark? Or what specific realizations or experiences should be occurring? Thank you.
Okay. Regarding the last question, what specific realizations or experiences should be occurring? Nothing should be occurring. What we are investigating is our own being, which is always shining clearly. always shining clearly as I am. We all know there's never a moment when we do not know I am. Whatever else we may know, who is it who knows it? I know it. So the knowledge I, or the awareness I, and the awareness of the existence of I, namely I am, this is always shining clearly. So we are not looking for anything other than what is always existing and shining, namely our own being. So we shouldn't be looking for any experiences or any realizations. It's difficult to express in English. There's a nice word in Sanskrit, visesha. Visesha means what is special. We are not, when we are investigating ourselves, we are not looking for anything special, anything out of the ordinary. We are looking for what is nirvisesha, non-special, because what we are investigating is our own being, which is the one thing that shines eternally, at all times and in all places. That is, when in waking, we're aware I am. In dream, we're aware I am. In sleep, we're aware I am. So the one thing that we are always aware of is our own being, I am. But whereas in sleep, we are aware only I am, in waking and dream, we're aware of so many other things. Why this difference? Because whereas in sleep, we are aware just I am, in waking and dream, we are aware of ourselves as I am this body, I am this person. And because we identify ourselves as a body, we therefore are aware of the semi-existence of so many other things. So all everything that we experience in waking, and that all the things that we experience in waking or dream, but we do not experience in sleep, are nirvisesha. What we experience in sleep, which is just our own being, I am, is nirvisesha, because we experience that in all three states. So that is the screen on which all experiences appear and disappear. So we are investigating that screen, that substratum, the adhara. Bhagavan often used the analogy of the cinema screen. Whether pictures are projected on it or not, the screen is always there. Even when we're watching pictures on the screen, what we are actually watching is only the screen. But we overlook the screen because we're more interested in the pictures. So the screen is our own being, that fundamental awareness I am. Everything else is superimposed on that. So that the answer to the last question, what specific realizations or experiences should be occurring, is so long as any specific realizations or experiences are occurring, we are attending to things other than ourselves. Our aim is to attend only to ourselves. So to come back to the first question, how can I effectively concentrate on the self or Brahman? When we talk about the self, it's a rather misleading word, the self, because when we talk about the self, we seem to be reifying it as the something. What we are to concentrate on, what we are to attend to, is only to ourself, not to any other thing called the self. And what is Brahman? Brahman is Tattvamasi. You yourself are that. So there's no Brahman other than you. So what we have to attend to is only to I. So we are not looking for something unknown, some unknown self or some unknown Brahman. There's no Brahman other than I. So Brahman is the one thing that we know always. The self, if we choose to use that term, is the one thing that we know always, because the self is nothing other than ourself, nothing other than our own being. I am, that fundamental awareness I am. So that is the one thing we are always aware of. So all we need to do is to turn our attention away from everything that appears back towards ourself, the one to whom it appears. That's why Bhagavan often used to say, investigate to whom. Doesn't matter what may appear, to whom does it appear? When he says investigate to whom, he doesn't mean that we should ask the question to whom. What he means is we should turn our attention back towards ourselves, the one to whom all other things appear. So what we are to attend to is not any object, but only to the subject, not to anything known, but only to the knower. Of course, the knower is known, but it's not, we don't know the knower as an object. We don't know ourselves as an object. So we are not attending to any object, we're attending only to the subject. So it's, if we think of it, of concentrating on the self or Brahman, as if the self or Brahman was something other than ourselves, then we can ask how to effectively concentrate on it. But if we understand that the self or Brahman is nothing other than ourself, our own being, our own fundamental awareness, I am, if we understand that, then it's just a matter of attending to ourselves, attending to, and of course, when we talk about attending to ourselves, first we need to understand what we are and what we are not. We are not this, now we seem to be this body, we seem to be this mind, but this body and mind, or this body consisting of 5 sheaths, which includes the mind, these are phenomena that appear and disappear. We're not aware of the body or mind when we're asleep. So these are things other than ourselves. What we're aware of in sleep is only our own being, I am. We're not aware of anything else whatsoever in sleep. In fact, most people mistake sleep to be a state of non-awareness or unconsciousness. But of course it's not, because we're aware of having been in a state in which we were aware of nothing. Aware of nothing means we were not aware of any objects or phenomena. But in spite of not being aware of any objects, we were aware of being in that state. So we were aware of our own being. We were aware of being without any awareness of anything other than ourselves. So that is the fundamental awareness of our own being. That is what we are trying to hold on to now. And that same awareness I am that was shining in sleep is shining now in waking and also in dream. The difference is now we have mixed and conflated that awareness I am with a set of adjuncts. This, namely this body, this bundle of 5 sheaths called body, the body, the life, the mind, the intellect, and the will. All these 5, Bhagavan says, the body is a form of 5 sheaths. The 5 sheaths just refer to these 5. The physical form of the body, the life that animates it, and the mind, intellect, and will that function within it. These are the 5 sheaths. This is what we now experience as ourself. But all these things are objects known by us. This body is clearly an object known by us, though it seems to be ourself. We also we mistake it to be ourselves, but if we think about it, it's clearly an object. We can see it. It's something separate from ourselves. We can see it, we can feel it, and so it's an object known by us. Likewise, the prana, the life, the breath, all the physiological functions in the body, these are all objects known by us. And the mind, in this context, the word mind means the grosser functions of the mind, the perceptions, memories, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and so on. These are all objects known by us. They're all things that we know. They appear and they disappear in our view, so they're objects known by us. The intellect is that aspect of the mind that judges, discerns, discriminates. But all these functions of the intellect are all known by us. And the intellect is nothing but these functions. So intellect is something known by us. The will, in its grosser form, the will consists of likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, and so on. We all know these things. We all experience desires and dislikes and all these fears and so on. These are things known by us. They're objects. All these grosser forms of the will sprout from subtle inclinations, those inclinations called vasanas. Even these vasanas are known by us as objects. When we have an inclination to, it's the inclinations that sprout as a like or dislike, and they in turn sprout as desires and aversions and so on. So supposing we have a desire for, supposing we're very hungry, so we have desire for food. That desire arises from a liking. We have a liking for food. Why do we like food? Because we need food to nourish this body, which we take to be ourselves. And so we have an inclination to like food. And that inclination to like food gives rise to a liking, and the liking gives rise to a desire. So all these aspects of the will, from the subtlest aspect, which are the vasana, the seeds, that sprout as all the other, the likes, dislikes, desires, attachments, hopes, fears, and so on. These are all sprouted forms of these seeds called vasana, the basic inclinations. So these are all objects known by us. So who am I who know all these things? To whom do all these things appear? To whom do all these likes and dislikes appear? To whom do all these desires and fears appear? To me, who am I? We turn our attention back to ourselves. It's not a matter of asking the question, to whom, to me, though sometimes we may, it's useful to ponder on the questions, but the actual practice is not just asking the question. The actual practice is turning our attention back towards ourselves, the one to whom all these things appear. And then this person goes on to say, it is clear that this should be accomplished effortlessly, within brackets, without doing. This is a very important point that requires clarification. There's a difference between doing and effort. Obviously, to do anything requires effort. But when we rise as ego, it is the nature of ego to have vasanas, inclinations, to attend to things other than itself. This is what Bhagavan calls Vishaya vasanas. Vishayas means any objects or phenomena. Anything other than ourselves is a Vishaya. So we have Vishaya vasanas, inclinations to attend to things other than ourselves. Why do we have such inclinations? Because it is the very nature of ego to having such inclinations. Why? Because as Bhagavan made clear in verse 25 of Uludunapadu, and also in so many other places, but he made it particularly clear in verse 25 of Uludunapadu, the nature of ego is such that it cannot rise, stand, or flourish without grasping form. What he means by grasping form means any object or phenomenon. It doesn't only mean physical forms, it can mean every thought, every feeling, everything is a form. All phenomena are forms of one kind or another. Form here means objects or phenomena. And ego cannot rise, stand, or flourish without constantly grasping such forms. The first form it grasps is the form of a body consisting of these 5 sheaths. And so ego cannot rise or stand or endure without identifying itself as I am this body. And having identified itself as this body, then it's constantly grasping other forms. Grasping means, how is ego grasping these things? Ego, as Bhagavan says, it's a formless demon or formless phantom. In the same verse, he describes ego as Uruvatra Peyahande, a formless demon ego. So ego has no form of its own. So whatever it's grasping are things other than itself. Since it's formless, it has got no hands or feet for grasping anything. So how does it grasp? It grasps by knowing it. It grasps in its awareness. It grasps by attending to things. So it's the very nature of ourself as ego to be constantly attending to things other than ourselves. Because if we do not attend to things other than ourselves, ego cannot be sustained. At the end of a hard day's of activity, we feel tired. And then we go to bed and we fall asleep. Falling asleep is we are letting go of all these things that we've been grasping in the day. And when we let go of everything, the result is ego cannot stand without holding on to other things. So when we're too tired to continue attending to anything other than ourselves, we naturally fall asleep. But our aim isn't just to fall asleep, because sleep is fine. There's no problem with sleep, except one problem with sleep. We come out of it again. So sleep is what is called a state of manolaya. It is a temporary dissolution of mind or ego. Our aim is the permanent dissolution of mind or ego. That permanent dissolution is called manonasa. that manonasa can be brought about only by that is, when it says manonasa, that's destruction of the mind. What is the mind? In this broadest sense, mind is a collection of thoughts. The totality of all thoughts is mind. But as Bhagavan points out in verse 18 of Upadeshandaya, of all thoughts, the root thought is the thought I, that is ego. Therefore, what the mind essentially is this ego, because all other thoughts are objects known by us, by ego. So without ego, no other thought can exist. That's why Bhagavan says, of all the thoughts that rise in the mind, the first thought is the thought called I. Thought called I means ego. So because ego is the subject, all other thoughts are objects. So ego, though ego is a thought, it is a thought unlike all other thoughts, because ego is the only thought that is endowed with awareness. So the nature of ego, as Bhagavan makes clear in verse 25 of Uludnaptu, is to rise, stand, and flourish by grasping things other than itself. If it doesn't grasp other things, it subsides, as it does in sleep. But ego is the other, that the ego cannot grasp other things without first grasping and identifying itself as a body. So it's only when we experience ourselves as I am this body, but we are aware of the existence of other things. So ego, as Bhagavan said, is the false awareness, I am this body. That is that which is aware of itself as I am this body, that is ego. So ego is a false awareness of ourself. Since it's a false awareness of ourself, ego can be destroyed. And only when ego is destroyed, mind is destroyed, because ego is the root and essence of the mind. Ego can be destroyed only by being aware of itself as it actually is. So we as ego need to experience ourselves as we actually are. Now as ego, we're experiencing ourselves as I am this body. That is not what we actually are. In order to experience ourselves as we actually are, we need to turn our attention within. We need to, turning our attention within means we need to turn our attention back towards ourselves. To the extent to which we turn our attention towards ourselves, ego thereby subsides. That's why in that same verse 25 of Uludunaptu, in which Bhagavan describes ego as a formless demon ego, he says, grasping form, it comes into existence. Grasping form, it stands. Grasping and feeding on forms, it flourishes abundantly. Leaving form, it grasps form. So the very nature of mind is or ego is to be always grasping forms, always grasping things other than itself. But then he says, Tedinal otum pidicum. Tedinal means it's seeking. Otum pidicum means it runs away, it takes flight. Otum means running, pidicum means seizing. So it's an idiom, like the English idiom, take flight means to run away. In Tamil, otum pidicum means exactly the same as take flight. So what Bhagavan says is, when he says it's seeking, what does he mean? He doesn't say who is to seek what, but the implication is, if we as ego seek our own reality, we seek to know who am I. In other words, if we turn our attention back towards ourselves to see what we actually are, we will take flight. That means we will subside and dissolve back into our source. So to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we as ego will subside. And when we subside, everything will subside along with us. Because as he says in the next verse, verse 26 of Uludnaptu, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Why is that? Because everything exists only in the view of ego. So only when we rise as ego does this world seem to exist. When we don't rise as ego, we're not aware of any world. So if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. Ego itself is everything. Therefore, investigating what this there refers to ego, investigating what this ego is giving up everything. Why is it giving up everything? Because if we investigate ego, ego will take flight. And when when ego goes, everything else goes with it, because nothing can exist in the absence of ego, because all phenomena, the whole world, exists only in the view of ego. In the absence of ego, there's no world. So when we investigate ego, we are thereby giving up everything. So all that is required is for us to turn our attention within. But this is where we come back to this question of effort. Because it is of the very nature of ourself as ego to have Vishaya vasanas. That means inclinations to attend to things other than ourselves, because without attending to things other than ourselves, we cannot survive as ego. To turn our attention within requires effort. It is not a doing. Turning our attention within is not doing anything, it is ceasing to do anything, because to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we as ego subside. So attending to ourselves is not a doing, but a state of being. It's a cessation of doing, but it requires effort. So we shouldn't equate effort with doing. We shouldn't be doing anything, because doing means rising as ego and going outwards. Our aim is to turn within and to subside. So by attending to ourselves, we are refraining from doing anything. But in order to attend to ourselves, effort is necessary. So long as we still have an inclination, so long as we still rise as ego, it requires effort to fix our attention on ourselves, because the normal flow of ego's attention is to go outwards. So when we're trying to attend to ourselves, we are, so to speak, swimming against the current. So that requires effort. Of course, we're not literally swimming, so we're not actually doing anything. We're simply attending to ourselves. Or to put it even more clearly, we are being self-attentive. Being self-attentive is not a doing, it's a state of being. But it requires effort until ego is destroyed. Once ego is destroyed, then only it becomes effortless. So we shouldn't expect to be doing effortless sadhana. So if we're not making effort, we're not doing any spiritual practice. It requires effort. Effort is required until ego is destroyed. But the effort that is necessary is not an effort to do anything, but an effort to be as we actually are. And we can be as we actually are only by attending to ourselves. To the extent to which we attend to ourselves, attend to our own being, we thereby subside back into our being and remain and then we remain as we actually are. That is being as we actually are. That is what is called summa irupadu, just being, which is sometimes in English translated as being still. But a more accurate translation of summa irupadu is just being.
Michael, we've got quite a queue of questions.
Okay, sorry, I'll just quickly finish off, because this question this person has asked, it's touching on the very heart of Bhagavan's teaching, so it's important to understand these things. So I'll just answer, there's one more thing. Should I be simply realizing that all is one and that everything is an extension of the self, which is me? No. So long as we are thinking about all, our attention is on something other than ourself. Nothing exists independent of ourself, but so long as we're looking outwards, we see ourselves as if we're many. But this many is not what we actually are. So what we need to do in order to realize that all is one, we need to attend to ourself alone. So long as we're attending to something other than ourselves, we've got duality there. But we, the subject, are attending to some other thing, the object. That is the basic duality, is subject-object. This duality is not real, but it seems to be the case so long as we are aware of anything other than ourselves. So in order to, the only non-dual practice, the only practice of oneness is not to think about anything else, but to attend to ourselves alone. Yes, sorry, Chris, I went into a long explanation, but because I thought it was an important question to answer.
Yeah, no, you probably you aren't aware of the questions.
Yeah.
We could have Michael Doyle if he's on. There is a Michael.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you're there.
Yes. Unfortunately, I don't remember the question that was asked. It's been a week and my short-term memory is not that good. So we can go to the next, please.
Okay.
So long as you remember I, that's all that's necessary.
Yes, thank you.
If we can remember I and forget everything else, that is following Bhagavan's teachings correctly.
Thank you.
That is truly being Sada Shiva. Sada means permanent. And
Yeah.
Shiva is what is shining as I.
Yeah. Tatastu.
Yes.
Okay, good. So the next question is, when I practice Ramana's teaching of I am not this body, I am missing the self-love aspect of life. How do one balance?
The one thing we all love above all other things is ourself. Whatever else we love because we feel it either contributes to our happiness or it has the potential to contribute to our happiness. So all love ultimately is centered around self-love. So self-love is our real nature. Because we take ourselves to be this small person, we feel a deficiency because we've limited ourselves. What we actually are is the infinite ocean of happiness, but we've now limited ourselves with this body, so we don't experience ourselves as that infinite ocean of happiness. What Bhagavan's path is the path of turning our attention back to ourselves. The more we attend to ourselves, the more we as ego subside, thereby the limitation, when ego dissolves, all the limitations drop off, and then only do we experience ourselves as the infinite whole. Then only do we experience self-love in its fullness. And since we are the infinite whole, that self-love is all embracing. It's nothing is excluded from that. So Bhagavan's path is the true path of love. Because in love, if you truly love someone, you're not concerned about what you can get from that person. If you truly love someone, you want to, what can you do for that person? So love is not about taking, it's about giving. And the ultimate giving is to give ourselves. So in this path of Atma Vichara, this is the path of Atma Samarpanam, self-surrender. That is, to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we as ego subside. That subsidence of ego is self-surrender. So we are, to the extent to which we go deep in this path, we are giving ourselves, we are surrendering ourselves, and thereby merging back into the infinite whole that is our own real nature. So this is in order to surrender ourselves requires great love. So until we are consumed by love, we will not be willing to surrender ourselves. Only when we have all-consuming love to know and to be what we actually are, will we be willing to surrender ourselves. So this Bhagavan's path is the ultimate path of love. It requires the greatest love to follow this path. Why we are all falling short, why we have not yet achieved the goal, because we do not yet have sufficient love to be willing to give ourselves, surrender ourselves completely. I hope that was an adequate answer to that question, if I understood the question correctly.
Okay. So the next one is Namaskaram, Michael. As I understand it, when a person dies, it's the gross body that dies and not the subtle and causal bodies. it is said that the life force, known as Oyer, is it in Tamil, Oyer is how to spell it, has left the person causing death. So my question is, does the Atman go along with the subtle and causal bodies of death to different realms? But as the Atman is all pervasive, this cannot be true. So could you expand on this, Michael? Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, this can be answered from various angles. Yes, in most Vedantic texts, it is said that when the gross body dies, what transmigrates or what goes on to another life is the subtle body. But that, though they use the term subtle body, sukshma sarira, this shouldn't be confused with the subtle body also refers to that is in terms of the five sheaths, the physical body, the Annamaya kosha is called the gross body. The Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, and Vijnanamaya kosha, that's the life, mind, and intellect, are called the Sukshma Sarira. And the will, the vasanas, are called the causal body. But when it is said that the subtle body is what survives death, that doesn't mean these three sheaths. What it means is, in that context, what is meant by subtle body is ego. Bhagavan has made this very clear in verse 24 of Uludunapadu. What he says in verse 24 is, the insentient body does not say I. In other words, their body is not aware of itself as I. Satchit udiyadu, Satchit, the being awareness, the real awareness, does not rise. In between, one thing I rises as the extent of a body. That one thing I rises at the extent of a body, because it rises, it's not Satchit. But because it's aware of itself as I, it's not the body. So it's neither the body nor Satchit, but something that rises in between, borrowing the properties of both. It borrows its existence and awareness from Satchit, and it borrows its form from a body. So it's aware of itself as I am this body. That's what he means. It rises to the extent of a body. That means it's limited within the confines of the body. Then he goes on to say, this is, and he gives a list of things. First he says, Chit Jada Granti. Chit Jada Granti means the knot formed by the entanglement of Chit and Jada. That is, Chit there refers to Satchit. Jada refers to the body, which is Jada, insentient. These two are conflated together as I am this body. That is Chit Jada Granti. Chit Jada Granti, bandham, it's bondage, because by limiting ourselves to this body, we bind ourselves to so many limitations. Actually, those limitations do not bind us. We bind ourselves to them by grasping this body as I. So it's Chit Jada Granti, bandham. I think the next one is Jivan. Let's see, no, just get the verse. Chit Jada Granti, bandham, Jivan. Jivan means the soul. Then he says Nupame. Nupame means subtle body. Ahande, ego. Ichsamsaram, this samsara. Manam. So all these terms are referring to this one thing, this I that rises limited to the extent of a body. So Bhagavan is in effect saying here, but ego is subtle body. But that doesn't mean ego is these three sheaths. Ego is not any of the sheaths. The sheath, all five sheaths are what ego identifies as I am this body. So he's not saying that ego is the pranamaya kosha, manamaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, he's using the term subtle body here in a different sense. And people can say, oh, well, that's a Tamil term he's using, nupame. That's maybe different to sukshma sarira. But if we have that doubt, he uses the same term in the fourth paragraph of Nana. At the end of the fourth paragraph, he says, manam, here manam is referring to ego. It's referring to mind as a knower. Manam epordum or stulate anusarite nikum. The mind always stands, literally it means following something gross. In other words, attaching itself to something gross. Taniai niladu. Separately, it cannot stand. So we cannot rise or stand as ego or mind without grasping something gross. And then he says, maname sukshma sariram endram jivan endram sola padikiradu. The mind itself is called the subtle body and jiva. Jiva means ego. So why Bhagavan used it here, why he uses this term sukshma sarira here and nupame in that verse of Ulutunaptu, it's for a purpose. Because when it is said that the subtle body survives the death of the gross body, it's not talking about the pranamaya kosha, manamaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, it's talking about ego. So when the gross body dies, there are two possibilities. At the time of death, either we slip into sleep or we slip into a dreamlike state. Our present state is a dreamlike state, so we go from one dream to another dream, or we go from this dream into sleep. One or two of those possibilities there. If we subside in sleep, we'll wake up again, and we'll then be experiencing a dream, because according to Bhagavan, what we take to be waking is actually just a dream. So when we dream, what goes from one dream to another is ego. But ego always takes with it its vasanas. Vasanas are what are called the karana sarira. That's why the vasanas are what are also referred to as the anandamaya kosha. Why are they called anandamaya kosha? Because vasanas are desires. Desires are for what? For happiness. We are all seeking happiness. So it is the desire for happiness, but is all our vasanas are the fundamental driving force behind all vasanas is the desire for happiness, because we all desire happiness. It's our very nature, because happiness is our true nature. So long as we limit ourselves, we thereby limit the happiness we experience. So we crave for the infinite happiness that is our own real nature. And that's what gives rise to vasanas. So though the vasanas are, we are seeking happiness outside in things other than ourselves. Vasanas, the Vishaya vasanas being the inclination to seek happiness in other things, but it's still happiness we're seeking. The happiness doesn't lie in those other things, but why we seek other things, why we seek money or learning or loving relationships or name or fame or whatever we may desire, why we desire that? Because we believe it's a source of happiness. We believe it will make us happy. So all desires are for happiness. So that is why the bundle of vasanas, which form the karana sarira, are also called the anandamaya kosha. So ego always takes its vasanas with it. But vasanas are the seeds that give rise to all the other sheaves. So as soon as we rise as ego, for example, in dream, when we rise as ego in dream, does that body, dream body that we experience as ourselves, did it exist there before we started dreaming? No. As soon as we rise, we project a body, and through the five senses of that body, we project an outside world. So, but everything that we project, it's a projection of our vasanas. Bhagavan often used the analogy of the cinema, and he said the vasanas are like the film reel. So everything that we see outside is nothing but a projection of our own vasanas. So ego always takes its vasanas with it, and its vasanas have all the other four sheaves, the the intellect, the mind, the life, and the body, all these are there in the Karana Sarira in seed form. So when it is said that the subtle body is what transmigrates from one life to another life, what that means is it is ego that transmigrates. It takes with it the vasanas, which are what are collectively called the Karana Sarira, and those give rise to another set of the other four sheaths sprout from that, and we again take a body to be I. So what goes from one life to another is only ego and its vasanas. But both vasanas are seed form of everything else. And also the usual understanding that is often explained in English as transmigration. Transmigration means going from one to another, one place to another, or one state to another. But it's usually understood, but when we die, we wait and then enter another body, as if the body is existing there. But Bhagavan has made it clear that that any state in which we experience a body and world is just a dream. So the next life that we experience is just another dream. That is, this dream has come to an end, so we begin to dream another life. Now I'm dreaming I'm Michael. If this I that is aware of itself as I am Michael is not annihilated before the death of this body, or at least at the death of this body, then I will continue dreaming another dream. Because though the dream comes to an end, so long as the dreamer survives, the dreaming will continue. The dreamer is ego. So it's not really going from one state to another. I mean, we could say it's not going from one place to another place. It is just, one dream comes to an end and we begin to dream another dream. And the dreamer of that dream is ego, which is what is said to be the subtle body that transmigrates from one life to another. I hope that clarifies that.
I think it's going to crop up a little bit in the next question or two. So the next question would be, what is the, or maybe I'll just say, he has two questions, so let's put the second one first. Maybe you've covered it.
Yeah.
If he has any suggestion on removing vasanas, especially when they come in hot and heavy and self-inquiry becomes difficult.
The most effective way of removing vasanas is self-investigation. Because vasanas, but that is the vasanas we seek to remove are Vishaya vasanas, inclination to seek happiness in anything other than ourselves. So any movement of the mind, movements of the mind are all going outward. Any movement of the mind is driven by our Vishaya vasanas. So under the sway of Vishaya vasanas, we allow our attention to go away from ourselves towards other things. If we want to weaken those Vishaya vasanas, the only way is to stop allowing the mind to be swayed by them. And to stop the mind being swayed by any Vishaya vasana, we need to turn our attention within. We turn our attention within under the sway of Sat vasana. Sat vasana is the inclination just to be as we actually are by attending to our being. So the more we attend to our being, the more we are strengthening the Sat vasana and weakening the Vishaya vasanas. There's no, it may seem difficult because why we are so easily swayed by our Vishaya vasanas? Because we like to be swayed by them, because they're our likings. So naturally we're swayed by them. And that's why we need discrimination. We need to understand, but we've been seeking happiness outside ourselves for countless janmas. We don't live out countless lives. We've been seeking happiness outside ourselves, but we still haven't found that happiness. We seem to experience little dribs and drabs of happiness, but we're never satisfied. So Bhagavan teaches us, no, happiness. Why we've never found happiness outside ourselves? Because happiness doesn't lie outside ourselves. Happiness is our own real nature. So we need to understand that if we really want to experience the infinite happiness that we're all craving, we need to turn our attention within. And however many times our attention is dragged outwards by Vishaya vasanas, we need to turn it back within. Patient and persistent practice is the only way to succeed. There's no other way. Of course, there are other ways to weaken the vasanas. For example, we can, by devotion to a name or form of God, if we're always meditating on a name or form of God, we are thereby stopping the mind going after other Vishayas. But even that name or form of God is something external to ourselves. That's why Bhagavan says in verse 8 of Upadesha Undiyar, rather than Anya Bhava. Anya Bhava in this context means, Anya means what is other. Bhava in this context means meditation. Rather than meditation on what is other, in other words, meditation on God as if he was something other than ourselves. In other words, meditation on God as a name or form. Ananya Bhava, that's meditation on what is not other, with the understanding he is I, that is best among all. What he refers to there as Ananya Bhava, meditation on what is not other, means meditation on ourselves alone. In other words, it's Atma Vichara. So once we understand God is not something external to ourselves, God is what is shining within us as our own self, as our own being, as I am, then we will get the love to turn our attention within and to lovingly attend to ourselves. That is, of all forms of meditation, that is the best. Rather than attending to something other than ourselves, it's better to attend to ourselves. Why? Because anything other than ourselves, even a name or form of God, is a Vishaya. It's good to focus on that name or form of God because that focuses our love. But ultimately, that is not the true form of God. The true form of God, the God's Swarupa, is Atma Swarupa, our own real nature. What is shining in us as I, that is God. So the best way to the best form of devotion is to attend to ourselves. The best way of expressing our love for God is to attend to I, because God is what shines as I. That is also the most, when Bhagavan's in that context, when he says, among, rather than Anya Bhava, and Anya Bhava is best among all, he also means it's the most effective means to purify the mind. The impurities in the mind are the Vishaya vasanas. So all the nishkarmiya karmas that Bhagavan was talking about in earlier verses, from verses 3 to 7, the nishkarmiya puja, nishkarmiya japa, nishkarmiya dhyana, that means worship and repetition of a divine name and meditation on a name or form of God, done without desire for any fruit. These are all means to purify the mind. And he gives in this order, each is better than the other, more effective in purifying the mind, in other words. But best among all is Ananya Bhava. That is when we understand that he is I, but God is nothing but I, we attend to I, that is the best means of purifying the mind. That is the best of all practices of bhakti. In the next verse, he said, by the strength of that meditation, being in Sat-bhava, being in our natural state of being, which transcends all bhavana, in this context, that means mental activity, that is parabhakti tattva, that is the supreme devotion. That's the very nature of supreme devotion. So this Atma Vichara is best practice of devotion, the best means to purify, most effective means to purify the mind. So however difficult it may seem to be, we just have to do it, because if we really want to succeed, we will persevere. And if we persevere, success is assured.
Okay, so his next part of his question was, what is the best use of our time when we need a break from self-inquiry?
Anything that encourages us to turn our attention back towards ourselves is good. And obviously the most effective thing is to be reading or thinking about Bhagavan's teachings, because Bhagavan's teachings are constantly pointing our attention back at ourselves. So either reading or dwelling upon Bhagavan's teachings and praying to him if we are disheartened by our seeming failure. But we should never think we're actually failing, because Bhagavan said, so long as you're trying, that is sufficient. Because if you try, you will eventually succeed. So though we may seem to be failing, we shouldn't be disheartened. We should keep on trying. But sometimes it's natural for us. We turn to Bhagavan in prayer when we feel overcoming all these vasanas seem to be an insurmountable obstacle. We pray to Bhagavan. Of course, Bhagavan, whether we pray to him or not, Bhagavan's help is always there. But by praying to him, we are channeling our love in that direction. So we'll get more love to turn within.
So the next question is, can Michael tell us about his experience and how it's changed over the years after a long time practicing? Thank you.
Anything that changes is not real. The only experience we should be concerned about is the fundamental experience I am. That is what any other experience comes and goes and need not concern us. Our only concern should be to attend to I am. Because that's the only real experience. All other experiences are fleeting appearances. But one thing that is constant through all the three states, waking, dream, and sleep, is this awareness I am. So that is the only experience we should be concerned about.
I'm not quite sure what it says. I'll just read it exactly.
Yeah.
Head being in tiger's mouth, how to surrender to complete consumption, asking who wants to be consumed, after inquiry residing in self, vasanas seem to come back stronger.
If we are pursuing this path of self-investigation, the vasanas will be getting weaker. Sometimes the deeper we go in this practice, the more the vasanas get attenuated, the more they lose their strength. But the more they lose their strength, the more purified, the more clear our mind becomes. So it may seem to us that the vasanas are getting stronger because we are more acutely aware of them. Whereas previously we were being swept hither and thither by vasanas, we weren't, we may have been overlooking the vasanas, but now we are trying more and more to turn within. Every time the vasanas pull our attention away from ourselves, we're painfully aware of their presence. So it may seem that the vasanas are getting stronger, but actually, if we're truly following this path, they'll be getting weaker. Sadhu Om used to use an analogy. If you've got a very dirty cloth, you can't see all the deeply ingrained stains on it. But if you begin to wash the cloth, when you begin to remove the superficial dirt, then the deeply ingrained stains become more and more visible. Like that, as the mind gets purer, the dirt in the mind becomes more and more visible. Another analogy he gave is the moon. If you see a crescent moon, you can't see any craters. Even if you see a half moon, in a half moon, you can only very vaguely see the craters. It's only in a full moon that you can see the craters very clearly, because they stand out more clearly the brighter the moon becomes. Likewise, the more our mind is purified, the more the impurities in the mind will stand out. Because they're standing out against a very clear background. So we shouldn't be disheartened thinking that our vasanas are getting stronger. If we're truly doing our best to follow this path of turning within and attending to ourselves more and more, vasanas will be losing their strength. Bhagavan has made that, Bhagavan has made that very, very clear. In the 10th and 11th paragraphs of Nana, he makes it particularly clear, but in so many other places also. This is why we can't measure our progress, because just like a child, when we're growing as a child, we can't, in the view of others, oh, if we meet someone we haven't met for a year, they'll say, oh, you've grown up so much in the past year. But to us, we seem to be the same. So just like a child is not aware of its own growth, we are not aware of our progress in the spiritual path, and we need not be aware. All we need to be dedicated to is following this practice that Bhagavan has taught us. If we follow this practice, we are going on the right road. If we follow this road, sooner or later we'll reach our destination. Who cares whether that destination is the next minute or 100 lifetimes away? It doesn't matter. We keep on going in that direction single-mindedly. If we start thinking, oh, when will I get liberation? We are thinking in the future. Bhagavan says thinking of the past and future without knowing the truth of the present is like counting without knowing the value of one. So if someone tells you this such and such a thing is worth 10,000 rupees, if you haven't got an idea what 1 rupee is worth, is a rupee $1, or is it 1 cent, or is it $100? You don't know. So you don't know what 10,000 rupees means. So like that, if we don't know the value of the unit of currency or whatever it is, we won't know the value of the number. Like that, Bhagavan says, trying to know the past and future without knowing the truth of the present is like counting without knowing the value of one. So our focus should be not on when I will attain liberation. Let it be 100 lifetimes away. Let it be the next minute. Doesn't matter. Now, who am I now? Here and now. Not who will I be in the future or who was I in the past, but who am I now? Because if we have such intensity, we can see what we actually are here and now. So we need to be to follow this path, it requires great focus, great ekagrata, one-pointedness, single-mindedness. Otherwise, we're allowing our mind to go here and there. When will I get liberation? Maybe this lifetime, maybe that lifetime. Is it according to Prarabdha? Is it not according to Prarabdha? All these, so many thoughts are we filling our mind, which are useless. Instead of allowing our mind to dwell on all these other things, we should be attending to ourselves. Who is concerned about liberation? I am. So who am I?
The next question is asking what are the original texts of Bhagavan, and she asked it to be typed out in the chat. So somebody has typed out, and maybe you can make any corrections to that.
Yeah.
Nanar,
Yes.
Aladu Narpadu,
Yes.
Upadesha Undya, Anma Vidal,
Viday, yeah.
Ekatma Panchakam,
Yes.
Aludu, we've had that already.
Uludunaptu Anabandam.
Anabandam, yes.
Yes, that's a supplement to Uludunaptu.
Apalapatu.
Apalapatu, yes, that's the...
Arunachala Stuti Panchakam.
Yes. Arunachala Stuti Panchakam consists of 5. Arunachala Aksharam Malay, Navamani Malay, Patikam, Ashtakam, and Pancharatnam. These 5 make up Arunachala Stuti Panchakam. Stuti Panchakam means 5 hymns. And these are the 5.
So that's everything. We covered.
That's more or less everything. There's also some other Upadesha verses, but Sadhu Om gathered together under the name Upadesha Tanipaka. That's 27 verses that haven't been included in any of these other works. Right. But Upadesha Tanipaka, like Uludunaptu Anabandam, is a mixture of some original verses by Bhagavan and some verses that he translated from other sources.
Okay, so next question. During the times of extreme emotional stress, how can we remain in the self?
To whom is emotional stress? We always remember that is whatever may emotional stress or anything else, these are things that appear and disappear. We're not always in emotional stress. The emotional stress disappears when we fall asleep. We may wake up in the morning and the same emotional stress may jump on us again, but all these are phenomena. None of these could appear if we were not there to be aware of them. That's why Bhagavan always, that is this question Bhagavan gave us, to whom, is such a valuable question. To whom or for whom? For whom is this emotional stress? For me, then who am I? We need to single-mindedly, whatever may appear, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, to whom is it? We need to be constantly turning our attention back to ourselves. Whatever care or concern may arise in our mind, to whom, to whom, to whom? In this way, we need to be constantly turning our attention back towards ourselves. The emotional stress and all these things, this is all part of embodied existence. We all go through so many difficulties in this life. It's inevitable. So long as we have a body, we'll face difficulties, and those difficulties will be material difficulties, emotional difficulties, all types of difficulties we face. This is the price we pay for rising as ego. So this should motivate us to look within more and more and more to find out that which we actually are, which is ever unaffected by any of these things. All these, whatever we experience is like a picture projected on the screen. As Bhagavan used to say, a wild forest fire projected on the screen is not going to burn the screen. A flood projected on the screen is not going to wet the screen. So there is something within us that is unaffected by any of these things. That thing that is unaffected is our own being. Because whatever we experience, who is experiencing it? I am. So that I am is the constant background. That is the screen that is ever untouched by whatever may appear. So we need to shift our focus away from emotional stress is a state of mind. That state of mind appears to whom? To the one who rises as I am this mind, I am this, the experiencer. That I needs to turn back within to see who am I.
And there was an earlier part of his question which I just missed. The word destruction brings negative sense to me. Mind or ego are just doing as their nature is. Shouldn't we just let them remain unperturbed by them? Why mano nasa?
If you're experiencing emotional stress, and someone says someone offers you a way to destroy your mental, your emotional distress, would you think that destruction of the emotional distress is negative? No, we jump for it. Oh, yes, please, I want that. I want such destruction. I want all my emotional stress to go. So if we are attached to the mind and ego, destruction of mind and ego may sound very negative. But if we understand that mind and ego are the root cause of all our problems, we will welcome their destruction. So Lord Shiva is the destroyer, but he's the destroyer of everything that gives us trouble. And when everything that gives us trouble is destroyed, what remains is what is ever indestructible. That is our own real nature. So we need to face the destruction of all that is unreal in order to experience the undestructible reality that we actually are. Let mind be destroyed, let ego be destroyed. One thing that cannot be destroyed is ourself. Because we, as Bhagavan said it when he's talking about his death experience, I am the indestructible I, the ever indestructible I.
And he actually follows up later on a little bit. Plus, wouldn't nasa of mind mean just staying in samadhi forever, which wouldn't anyway be possible due to prarabdha?
Prarabdha, as Bhagavan said, prarabdha affects only the outward-facing mind. It cannot prevent the mind turning within. When ego is destroyed, all the three karmas are destroyed. He says that clearly in verse 38 of Uludunapadu. So karma is all, that is, we are now drowning in this ocean of karma. Kriti Mahodado Patanakaranam, Bhagavan says, the cause for falling in the great ocean of action. What is that cause? The vasanas. And whose vasanas? Ego's vasanas. So if we kill ego, we thereby get rid of the root cause of all this great ocean of action, all this samsara. The root of it all is ego. That's why Bhagavan says in verse 24 of Uludunapadu, that I referred to earlier, he describes ego as this samsara. That is, there's no samsara other than ego. There's no karma independent of ego. So destruction of ego is, and when we use terms like samadhi, the term samadhi can have different meanings in different contexts. That is, Bhagavan has said, dissolution of mind is of two kinds, laya or nasa. So any dissolution that is temporary, such as nirvikalpa, kevala nirvikalpa samadhi, is only manolaya. That's of no use. What we want is what Bhagavan referred to as sahaja samadhi. What he means by sahaja samadhi is just our natural state. Sahaja means natural. So our natural state is the state of just being as we actually are. That is sahaja samadhi. That is eternal. Even now we're in sahaja samadhi. We are not aware of it because we're looking outwards. If we look within, we will see sahaja samadhi is our real nature. When mind is destroyed, that means when ego is eradicated, all problems, everything is destroyed. What remains is what alone actually exists, namely ourself. Then we don't have to worry about prarabdha. We don't have to worry about samadhi or non-samadhi or anything. We don't have to worry about emotional stress because we alone are. That is the truth even now, but it doesn't seem to be the truth because we're looking outwards. If we look within deep enough, we will see that we are eternally, that's infinite Satchidananda, that is ever untouched by emotional stress, prarabdha, mind, ego, or any other problem.
So, question. When you are speaking or listening or working or driving or eating or doing anything, are you able to hold your attention inwards on the eye that has no adjuncts? If not, is it a goal you work towards?
It's a goal we're all working towards. I mean, but the more we practice this, the more we attend to ourselves, the more we find that life goes on as it's meant to go on. Everything happens as it's meant to happen. Our life doesn't require our attention because according to Bhagavan, everything is happening in accordance with prarabdha. If we are rising as ego and concerned about all these things, then we are just creating fresh karma by trying to seek, by doing actions, seeking more and more happiness. If instead, if we turn within, everything will happen as it's meant to happen. It may not seem to be the case now, but the deeper we go in the practice, the clearer it will become to us. We don't actually need to attend to anything other than ourselves.
Now there's somebody who would like to make an observation, if time permits, and that is Sudha Mantri. Sudha, would you like to put your point? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, my dear Michael. Good afternoon. It is interesting. A few of my acquaintances made an observation. They said, I've seen calmer. I'm more efficient in doing things. I don't even notice this, but I want to thank you because the questions are greatly reduced. I want to say the restlessness is gone. I'm not even observing it. I don't know if this is a byproduct of the self-investigation. I don't even call it self-investigation. I think it's natural. Because when I say self-investigation, it becomes a chore for me. And when I'm not, it's just natural. I don't know how to express it. But yeah, I mean, thank you is what I want to say. Thank you.
All thanks to Bhagavan, because what it's all come that any clarity that comes to us, it's coming only from Bhagavan, because Bhagavan is the source of all clarity. Bhagavan is always shining in our heart, giving light to the mind, as he says. So the more we turn within, the more we are bathing in that clarity that is Bhagavan himself. So all thanks to him only.
Namo Ramanaya.
Namo Ramanaya.
And our sort of sincere approach brings answers to us as they're needed.
Yes, exactly.
So we have one final question here.
Yes.
At least it's final at the moment. If even after years of efforts towards liberation, prayer, turning within, surrendering and repenting about sins with a priest, if even after doing my 100% with years of self-effort still certain bad habits are returning, is it possible self-realization even if some bad habits persist? Even after sincere efforts and repenting sins, they are still there, that it is actual parabdha karma. For example, Nisargadatta was smoking, but in spite of that, self-realization happened. Is self-realization still possible if certain habits persist even after many, many self-efforts to get free?
The best answer to this question is the one given by Bhagavan in the 10th paragraph of Nana. He says, I'll read the whole paragraph because the whole thing is, even though Vishaya vasanas, which come from time immemorial, rise in countless numbers like ocean waves, they will all be destroyed when Swarupa Dhyana increases and increases. Swarupa Dhyana means meditation on our own real nature. In other words, self-attentiveness. And then he goes on to say, without giving room even to the doubting thought, so many vasanas ceasing or being dissolved, is it possible to remain only a Swarupa? It is necessary to cling tenaciously to Swarupa Dhyana, self-attentiveness. And then he said, this is a particularly important sentence, however great a sinner one may be, if instead of lamenting and weeping, I am a sinner, how am I going to be saved? One completely rejects the thought that one is a sinner and is steadfast in self-attentiveness, Swarupa Dhyana, one will certainly be reformed. So he's given us of that assurance. If we cling fast to self-attentiveness, it will certainly save us. Doesn't matter how great a sinner we may be. Even the thought, I am a sinner, is a false identification. So let's reject even that thought, I am a sinner, and reject even the idea, how am I going to be saved? Give up all these, be steadfast in attending to who is this I who says I am a sinner? Who is this I who feels so, who feels so impure, so imperfect? If we continue to investigate that I will subside, and the true I, the underlying reality of I, which is what we actually are, that alone will reveal itself. So
That's all
Bhagavan
we
is
can-
least concerned about our action. We've all done so many bad things in the past, if not in this lifetime, in earlier lifetime, probably in this lifetime also. We've all made mistakes. We've all done bad things. That's not the point. What are we? Who are we? Sins are to do with actions. Some actions are relatively good. Some actions are relatively bad. Ultimately, all rising as the doer of action is the fundamental mistake. So how to put an end to this I but rises to do papa or punya, sins or virtuous actions, only by investigating this I. By investigating it, it will subside, and thereby we will be reformed. We'll be transformed into what we actually are.
Yeah.
Can we still ask one question? A question,
Yes.
or is it over, Michael?
Oh, no.
Okay. Because what I really want to ask, because your Tamil is so good, I really can't believe it. So the word, the word uir in Tamil Nadu you would have come
Yes,
across.
yes.
They say uir poituju. That means the uir has gone.
Yes.
Do they mean the ego has gone, the jiva? What is that uir which we normally talk about in normal parlance?
Yeah, weir means it means life. It means soul.
Soul.
Yeah.
Soul.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you say the we're poetry, that means the life has gone or the soul has gone. You can take it either way.
And yet we still say, may his soul rest in peace. I mean, this is why I'm very confused. What's weird? What is soul? What's ego?
But if we want the soul to rest in peace, it will rest in peace only in the state of manonasa.
Correct.
Until then, we are being pulled here and there by our vasanas.
Yeah.
So the state of resting in peace is only when we merge back into Bhagavan.
Correct.
Bhagavan alone is the true state of peace.
So the soul is not ego.
Soul is ego.
Soul is ego.
Yes,
and that is the uir that we talk about. In a normal parlance, we say.
In normal parlance, yes, exactly.
His uir is gone. Yeah.
Yes.
But Atman still remains there, even in a corpse, isn't it?
That the word Atma means ourself. It usually, that is, sometimes the word Atman is used to refer to ego. Sometimes it's used to refer to Atma Swarupa, our real nature.
Yes.
But often it's used to refer to our real nature. Our real nature is the one thing that always exists. That's the fundamental awareness I am.
The capital S-E-L-F.
Ego or soul or jiva or weir is that same I am mixed and conflated with adjuncts as I am Vasanta, I am Michael.
Okay, right. Okay.
Bhagavan has put it beautifully in verse 24 of Upadesha Undiyar.
I'm not able to get that book. I've tried so hard.
Oh.
Even in Ramana Ashram, I couldn't get it.
If you get Ramana Nutaratu, if you can,
all
Bhagavan's works are here.
Okay, I will the next trip when I'm there.
Yeah. So Bhagavan says, Irakum Iekayal Isa Jivagal Oru Porle Aba Undipara Upadi Unave Veru Undipara. That is, in being nature, God and soul are one substance, one porul. The difference is only the upadi unavu, because we're aware of ourselves, not just as I am, we're aware of ourselves as I am so-and-so, I am Vasanta, I am Michael. That is the upadi unavu, that adjunct conflated awareness.
Sometimes I'm so grateful to your message or your teachings. In a way, it's easier to turn within when we are walking about than sometimes when we sit for a practice or for a session, or we're sitting with the thoughts.
Yes.
More than ourselves, because we are so like, okay, I'm going to meditate. So then all the thoughts come flooding in.
Yeah.
But if you can practice all the time, that is the best.
Yeah.
Sada kalamum, as Bhagavan always said it, which is so difficult, but then it is possible, slowly, but surely.
Patient persistence. And Bhagavan made it so clear. Swarupa Dhyanate Vida Pidiyai Pidikabendam. He says it so forcibly.
Vida Pidiya, yes. Your Tamil is excellent.
Yeah. I mean, how much more forceful can you get?
Yes.
For people who don't understand Tamil, Swarupa Dhyana means self-attentiveness. Vida Pidiyai is an adverb that means holding without leaving.
Without leaving, yes.
So that is the adverb he uses for holding. So holding without leaving. It's so beautifully Bhagavan words it.
It's, I've been meditating for like 25 years on the different deities. Then when I came to Bhagavan only 2 years ago, it was like, of course, this is what it is. It's like, back to you.
Yes.
Not to anything else.
Bhagavan said it beautifully to Akalanda Maya, who was an illiterate village woman. She didn't know anything about teaching. She was just so devoted to Bhagavan. And someone advised her on a full moon day, but this is a very auspicious time. You should ask Bhagavan for some teaching. And she approached Bhagavan, but she didn't even know how to ask. And she was hesitating. And Bhagavan understood what she was wanting to ask. And he said to her, Une vidamaliru. Be without letting go of yourself.
Yeah.
That says it all.
Yeah. So we really don't have to cling on to a mantra or anything.
Cling on to yourself.
Yes.
If you cling to a mantra, where is that mantra dhvani coming from? It's coming only from you. So go back to the source. Hold on to yourself.
Sometimes the most difficult things are so simple.
Yeah.
The most complex things are so simple.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's our mind that makes it complex. It's actually extremely simple what Bhagavan has taught us.
Michael,
Ever so grateful, Michael.
Yes,
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
We have one question has crept in, and I think there was another one just came in now, but I'll just give this one that was in the chat.
Suzanne was just about to ask something.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I may.
Yes.
We'll leave this one then.
From your first answer, you said don't confuse effort with doing, but that's really from the perspective of ego, isn't it? It's not from the perspective of the self.
From the perspective of our real nature, there's no such thing. There's no doing and there's no effort.
Yeah.
But when we rise as ego, it's natural. The very nature of ego is to be doing, to be going outwards, clinging to things other than itself. That's all doing. Because of the strong inclination we have to cling to things other than ourselves, because our very survival as ego depends upon our clinging to other things, effort is needed to turn back within. But that effort to turn within is not a doing. It is a cessation of doing. Because to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, the I that rose to do anything subsides. So it's not only a cessation of doing, it's a cessation of the doer. But that requires effort. So long as, until ego is eradicated, effort is required. Because the natural course of ego is to be going outwards. Actually, even going outwards requires effort, but because the urge, the inclination to go outwards is so strong, it seems to us to be effortless. And what is truly should be effortless, just being should be effortless, but it seems to us to require great effort. But all this is only for ego.
Yeah.
When ego finally merges forever back into its source, into what we actually are, then we will find, as Bhagavan said, when someone asked Bhagavan about J. Krishnamurti spoke about effortless, choiceless awareness. Bhagavan said, yes, effortless, choiceless awareness, that's our real nature. But so long as we rise as ego, we need to make effort to get there.
Or actually, I was reading Silence of the Heart, Robert Adams, some time ago, and he said, put the attention on what is effortless and choiceless within us.
Yes, our own being is that we don't need any effort to be. So attending to our being is effortless and choiceless. But we need to make effort to hold on to that. So long as we rise as ego, in sleep we remain as pure being without making any effort. Why effort is necessary? Because we've risen as ego.
Happy, thank you.
So effort is necessary for the ego. Ego is necessary because of ego. Ego is what makes it necessary for ego to make effort.
Michael?
Yes?
This is a question I've always asked you, but Milan asked it. Milan, do you want to ask it? It's about ego, the many, and so forth. If there is only one ego, how is it happening, this conversation seeming that we are many people and everybody is talking?
In a dream, how many dreamers are there? There's one dreamer. But in the dream, you can be having a conversation like this. There seemed, so long as the one ego is looking outwards, the one ego identifies itself as a body. It sees many other bodies, and all those other bodies seem to be egos just like it. So in the view of the one ego, there are many egos. The many egos are an appearance. Even the one ego is an appearance. If that one ego investigates itself, it will find there's no such thing as ego. What actually exists is only pure being, pure awareness. I am.
Then
Such
this is
it.
a follow-up question, Michael. Then
Yes.
Bhagavan already realized there's no ego. Then why is the ego still there between, through here right now? It's Bhagavan already realized there's no ego. Why didn't it just go away? Why is it still dreaming? You and me.
Who is it who is asking this question?
Well, if there's one ego.
It's one ego, right? Exactly. Bhagavan doesn't ask any questions. We ask the questions. But Bhagavan tells us, Bhagavan doesn't deny the semi-existence of ego. He says, if ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. But he says, if we investigate that one ego, then we will find there's no such thing.
No, I'm just being facetious. I mean, there's no end to the questions is what I was trying to. As I said, it's just, I don't have questions really.
Yes.
I was being silly. Okay, thanks. Namo Ramanaya.
So, can you elaborate on the Eka Jiva Vada? It's hard to explain. Is it even required to understand and practice Bhagavan's teachings?
It is helpful to understand it. That the Eka Jiva Vada is actually very, very simple. According to Bhagavan, everything that we experience is a dream. In a dream, there is one dreamer. Everything else exists in the view of that one dreamer. So that the dreamer, the one who is experiencing all this, is the Eka Jiva. But that doesn't mean the Eka Jiva is real. That means all the multiplicity of jivas appears in the view of one jiva. If that one jiva investigates who am I, it will find that even that one jiva is unreal. What is real is only the pure being awareness, such it, that we actually are. But so long as we're looking outwards, we see a multiplicity of jivas. And so we obviously so long as we're dreaming, who is acting in the dream? The actor in the dream is a part of the dream. That is, the dreamer experiences itself as an actor in the dream. So the dreamer has to act as the actor. The dreamer has to act as if the dream is real, because there's no other way. We have no choice. We can't just pretend this is all a dream, because the one who wants to pretend this is a dream is themselves a part of a dream. So long as we are looking outwards, fine, we operate as if there are many jivas. That's why we have conversations and we exchange ideas and everything. But the purpose of the Ekajiva Vada is to make us look, in whose view do all these many jivas appear? In my view, who am I? We turn our attention back within. So we need to understand Bhagavan's teachings in a proper perspective. The whole aim of Bhagavan's teaching is to get us to turn within. So long as we're still looking outwards, yes, and of course there seem to be many jivas, and we should act accordingly. The proper way to put Ekajiva Vada into practice is to turn within to see who am I. Who am I, but one jiva in whose view so many other jivas seem to exist? Was that an adequate answer to that question?
Yes, Michael, thank you. Yes, thank you.
A correct application of teaching of Ekajiva is looking within.
Namaste, Michael.
Namaste.
Michael, I listened to your interview with Swami Sarvapriyananda, and I remember him saying that the world borrows its existence from Brahman, whereas you said the world borrows its existence from ego, and in turn, ego borrows its existence from Brahman. Now,
Yes.
I thought that was like a subtle but important distinction.
Yes.
Now, does that mean that there is a fundamental difference between Bhagavan's teachings and classical Vedanta?
I wouldn't say there's a fundamentally they're the same. Bhagavan's teachings are a clarification of the teachings of Vedanta. That is, in the Upanishads, it said, all of this is Brahman. Bhagavan says ego is all of this. Superficially, that may seem to be a contradiction. Oh, how can Bhagavan say all this is ego when the Upanishads say all this is Brahman? Actually, Bhagavan is clarifying all of this is ego, and if ego investigates itself, it finds it is Brahman. So Brahman is the ultimate substance. The intermediate substance is ego. It is ego, it is as ego that we see ourselves as all this. When we see ourselves as we actually are, we see ourselves as Brahman.
Yeah, no, I agree, Michael.
If we
Sorry.
understand Bhagavan correctly, Bhagavan hasn't contradicted the core principles of Vedanta in any way whatsoever. Many Vedantins, that is, Advaita is just one interpretation of Vedanta. The majority of Vedantins consider themselves to be Bhakti Vedantins. They think, oh, this Advaita is no good. It has no room for Bhakti. Bhagavan has clarified that Advaita is actually the pinnacle of Bhakti. The greatest love is to give oneself entirely to God. When you give yourself entirely to God, what remains? God alone. That is Advaita. So Bhagavan has not only clarified Advaita Vedanta, he's clarified all forms of Vedanta. He's brought out the real heart of Vedanta. And he's also made it clear, why are there so many different forms of Vedanta? Because different teachings are necessary for people at different stages of spiritual development. When when that, what was his name, Yogananda, that Swami who started the Self-Realization Fellowship in America and who wrote a book, Autobiography of a Yogi. In the 1930s, he came to Bhagavan and he asked Bhagavan, what teaching should be given for the uplift of the masses? And Bhagavan simply said, the teaching has to be according to the taught. There cannot be teachings on mass. So all the different interpretations of Vedanta, why do the Upanishads, why did the Bhagavad Gita, why do the Brahma Sutra give room for so many different interpretations to suit people at different stages of spiritual development? So all the different interpretations of Vedanta, all are correct at their own level. Bhagavan has brought out the essence of it all. Bhagavan has highlighted the ultimate truth is one only without a second. That's Advaita. He's also highlighted, but the means to get there is bhakti. And bhakti, the highest bhakti, is self-surrender. And we cannot surrender ourselves without investigating ourselves. So actually, we cannot separate bhakti and jnana. Bhakti without jnana is imperfect bhakti. Jnana without bhakti is not jnana at all.
Michael, along the same lines, I think Michael Tomino has been wanting to ask you
okay.
Fundamental question, Michael.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Michael. Yeah, no, sorry, I just wanted to complete. But yeah, no, I agree. What you said about the ego being kind of the intermediary knot between the world and Brahman. At a visceral level, that does feel very true. And I think that is an important clarification for me. It's helped me with Atma-vichar very much. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you. Sorry, my mic was kind of away. Thank you so much for all this. And so so you mentioned before that the soul is the ego. And so I was just wondering, because I thought that the soul is our true nature, us being like a piece of God, a fragment of God. And so, saying that soul is ego is the opposite of, what I would normally think. And so I'm very interested to know what you mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bhagavan said that the closest equivalent in Sanskrit to the word soul is jiva. Jiva means that the individual I, ego. So, I mean, Bhagavan very clearly says that jiva and ego are one and the same thing. The word soul it's used in different sense in different contexts, but generally, for example, in English is a language that has evolved in the Christian culture. So the word soul has a meaning within the Christian context. In the Christian context, a soul is an individual, is a separate. Each individual is a soul. So that's the meaning. Yeah. So soul is very close in meaning to the general idea of soul is very close in meaning to jiva. Regarding the relationship between soul and God, you say soul is a part of God. According to Bhagavan, no. How Bhagavan explains it, I referred to this earlier, there's a verse in Upadeshundya in which Bhagavan says, in their being nature, God and soul are one substance. That is, the being of soul and the being of God are one. What makes them seem different is the upadis. Upadis means the adjuncts. Now you're aware of yourself as I am Michael. Michael is the name of a person. That person is a body with a living body with mind and intellect and will operating within it. So all that bundle of five is what is called Michael. You experience yourself as I am Michael. In that mixed awareness, that adjunct conflated awareness, I am Michael, what is real is I am. That is God. I am is God. But you've now limited God as if it were, you've limited that I am as if it were a person. So you seem to be separate from God. Because obviously the small person called Michael is not God. You are God. You mistake yourself to be that person. That's why you seem to be separate from God. Is that clear?
Yeah, it seems well, the more I go into Ramana's teachings, it becomes more and more clear how it's really not learning anything but the unlearning, like as you talked about.
Bhagavan himself said that. Here it's not so much a matter of learning as of unlearning. Because we've got so many ideas, so many beliefs we built up. Bhagavan is deconstructing everything. He boils things down to the basics. What is all this world? It's something that appears in whose view? It appears in the view of ego. What is ego? If ego investigates itself, it merges back into its source and God alone remains. So you are not a part of God. You are the whole of God. But you mistake yourself to be something other than God. Of course, nothing is other than God, but when you mistake yourself to be something finite, you don't experience yourself as God, who is infinite. If you cast off these finite limitations that you've imposed upon yourself, the infinite being that you actually are, that is God.
So even thinking that you're, a fragment of God as a soul is a misrepresentation.
It's a misrepresentation. Because
inaccurate.
God isn't something that can be broken up into fragments. God is the infinite whole. Infinite means not only it has no external boundaries, it has no internal boundaries. If something is divided, it's not infinite, because it's got so many internal boundaries. Infinite means without boundaries, without limits. So something that is divided is limited. If you divide infinity in half, you've then got two things. Those two things they're not infinite, they're finite. So only that which is without nothing other than it should exist. If something other exists, then it's not infinite. So nothing can be other than God. And it also should be undivided, because if it's divided, then it becomes finite. If God is infinite, nothing can be other than God. So we are nothing other than God. We seem to be other than God because we've limited ourselves within the confines of this body, with this false identification. So all we need to do, even when we are aware of ourselves as I am Michael, I am still remains. If we hold on to I am, but limitations will drop off, and that I am is the infinite whole. That is God.
Wow, that is powerful.
That is Bhagavan's teachings. That is the teachings of Vedanta, of Advaita. Aham Brahmasmi, I am is Brahman. It's also the implied teachings in the Old Testament. God said, I am what I am. That means I am is what I am. He said to Moses, and he appeared in a burning bush. And then he told Moses, say that I am has sent you. So even in the Abrahamic religions, the original name of God is I am. That is Vedanta.
I think maybe one of the mistakes I'm making too is trying to intellectualize it too much, instead of just being.
Complexity requires a complex intellect. We need to simplify. That is, we need to deconstruct. We're not trying to construct great conceptual frameworks. We are trying to deconstruct everything. Go back to the simple basics. Consider experience. Experience, there are two elements in experience. There's the experiencer and what is experienced. There cannot be anything experienced without an experiencer. So the basis of all experience is the experiencer. The experiencer is ego. If we, this experiencing ego, investigate to see what we actually are, we will merge back into our source, and everything that we experience will merge along with us. And then what will remain is the one infinite whole, without a second. That is God, that is Advaita.
I really appreciate you saying that too, because I've studied pretty much everything under the sun, and you know, wondered why all these books were 200 or 300 pages long or whatever, and you know, not really saying much. And then when I came across Ramana, you know, it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Like, this is it. This is the simple, and it almost seems like it's too easy, but it's not. You know, because the more I've done it, even just ask me like, who's the one thinking this thought, who's the one that is upset about the situation, and just seeing how those illusions dissolve. I was like, this is it.
This is it, yes. Because Bhagavan goes right to, Bhagavan is a doctor who has diagnosed the root cause of the whole problem. The root cause is our rising as ego. And the nature of ego, when we rise as ego, we take ourselves to be a person, a body, and consequently we're aware of other things. So the two defining characteristics of ego, as ego, we're always aware of ourselves as I am this body, and we are consequently aware of the appearance of other things. If we investigate this ego will subside, merge back into its source, and then what alone always exists will alone remain. That is what we actually are. That is the reality of ego.
I really appreciate you taking the time to explain all this to everybody, and to me right now. Your work has been incredibly helpful.
I'm very selfish. I'm doing this for my sake because I've got an outward going mind, so I need to be constantly reminding myself of the need to turn within. So by repeating Bhagavan's teachings again and again and again, slowly they're sinking into my thick, my not even, I was going to say thick head, but it's not the head. It's into this vasana clouded mind. It's slowly his teachings are sinking in.
Well, I think that goes back to what you've said many times too, of how important it is to just keep practicing.
Exactly.
Practice.
That's what Bhagavan's teachings are all about.
And especially the metaphor you gave with, you know, when you have the dirty rag, how like once you take off the initial dirt.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really noticing for myself is just, you know, as I get rid of something, I'm noticing all this other crap.
Yeah.
And, you know, at first it feels like, oh man, I'm going backwards, but it's really just the opposite.
Yeah.
It's starting to see illusions that I didn't realize were there behind the scenes.
Exactly. So long as we're looking outwards, we don't see the dirt inside. The more we look inside, the more we see the dirt there. And the more we look inside, the more the dirt comes out and gets cleared out.
Yeah, wow, thank you.
Okay, well, all thanks to Bhagavan. It all comes from, I'm just simply saying what Bhagavan has taught us.
You're a very vital part of my dream.
It's all a dream. Who is the dreamer?
One question, Michael, about the dreamer now.
Yes.
Are we saying that now in this moment, I'm looking down and it's 50 participants. Are we saying that there is only one ego?
Yes.
And now I am talking and you are my dream. Everybody of us has the same feeling, and sometimes Bruce talking or Michael or whatever of us is talking, but this is the dream of one. But we are in a strange position that it seems that we are 50 and you are there giving a teaching. And we are talking about man Ramana before 50 years or Ibn Arabi or Buddha. But this is the dream of the one, and it's only in this moment, this is creation of our ego. In each moment, again and again, the world and the universe is happening. So the creation is in each moment.
It's all the creation of...
But this means that there is no gap between you, me, and others. Because if the example is the dream is only one substance, and this is consciousness.
Yes.
So thus we are saying that there is no physical gap between you, me, and everybody, but it's look like 2,000 miles or time or space, but there is no time and space now. We are in the broken moments each second, and it looks like volume. It looks like I have children or I have dog, but it's only looks in this moment because it's a creation of this ego at each moment now. Exactly. So it's mind-blowing. It's like an atom bomb which is blowing each second. But what makes the glue is ego. So ego makes this looks like something real.
But why does it all seem, when you dream, the dream seems to be real? Why?
For me, it's a problem with with dream, because I was training, for example, Tibetan Buddhism, etc. And sometimes I can be conscious and dream, and in the dream sometimes I can manipulate, etc. But it's strange. You are feeling that you are different there, so it's the same game. But here I cannot manipulate. I cannot go through the. I cannot invent you in front of me.
Even you're manipulating the dream is itself a part of the dream.
Yes, it's ego also. Yes.
But the reason a dream seems real when we're dreaming is that in a dream, though we are the dreamer, we are one who's created it. We don't experience ourselves as the creator of the dream. We experience ourselves as if we were a person in that dream world. Because we take ourselves to be what is real is only ourselves. But when we take ourselves to be a body in a dream, that body seems to be real. And since the body seems to be real, the body is a part of the dream world, so the whole dream world seems to be real. But as soon as you wake up from a dream, that is, as soon as you come from that dream to this dream, immediately you recognize that was just a dream. It was unreal. But why? Because your identification with that dream body is severed. So what a moment before seemed to you to be real, so long as you were identified with that dream body, as soon as your identification switches from that dream body to this body, you recognize that's unreal. All the many people you saw in your dream, they seemed so real while you were dreaming. As soon as you wake up, you understand, oh, they were just a mental fabrication. So why does this world seem so real now? Because we identify ourselves as I am this body. So this body seems to be real, so the whole world seems to be real, and all the other people seem to be real.
And are we in paradox that each of us, and it's only one, is the creator in the sense of theistic religions? Each of us, through his ego, is creating the world now.
Yes, because
in this moment we are inventing Ramana, who was living before.
Nothing exists independent of our perception of it. So by seeing anything, by hearing anything, we are creating it. Just like in a dream, the dream world doesn't exist independent of our perception of it. By seeing the dream, we are creating it. By seeing this world, we are creating it.
So we are the creators. So we can say
Yeah.
that we are Brahman even now in this paradox. Ego is the creator.
Brahman doesn't create. Brahman is pure being. Ego is the creator.
So we are creating Brahman now.
Yeah. If we turn our attention within to see who am I, who has seen all, who sees all this, who's created all this, we will merge back into our own being, which is Brahman, and then we will see there never was any creation at all. That is why the ultimate truth is ajata. There's no creation whatsoever.
So
Because
beauty in
nothing-
this is that even now nothing is happening, even if it looks like you are moving. We are
Yeah.
talking about you are
all
not seeing
appearance.
very well,
It's
but
all
it is.
appearance. But to whom does it all appear? That's the important point. We need to apply this in practice. The way to apply it in practice is to turn our attention back within to investigate, who am I to whom all these things appear?
So we invent even computers, even Wi-Fi in order to talk in a dream about a dream and to
It's all
undream the
part of
dream.
it. It's all part of a dream. But to whom does this dream appear?
Always to me, by definition.
Yeah, but don't be satisfied by saying to me.
Yes.
Who is that me? What are you? The dream appears to be I, but is aware of itself as I am Milan. But
And
that,
Michael,
but Milan is just a part of the dream. So who is that I?
and if I'm now going to investigate, do I have to chase this feeling of I, whatever it happens, even if it's in a body, but in the same moment it's here, or just stay?
Now it seems to be mixed with up with the body.
Yes,
But the more you attend to I, the more you fix your attention on I alone, the more the adjuncts, the body will drop off and I alone will remain.
It seems because when paradox, if I pinch myself, not you are saying, oh, but I'm saying, oh, this is part of the game.
It's part of the appearance.
It's tricky.
This is
Yes.
all part of the appearance.
Even Ramana feels pain, looks like feels pain.
Yeah. In our view.
In our view.
Yes.
So this strange
in a dream we see so many people suffering. So long as we're dreaming, that suffering seems to be so real. But the cause for that is because we have identified ourselves as a person within the dream. We cannot dream without experiencing ourselves as a person within our dream.
So if we are going to be, for example, in Ukraine tomorrow and it will be war and we broke the dream, it will happen that our body is nothing but other bodies too. We will not make difference between the bodies, and there is no...
When we know what we actually are, there'll be no dream. All bodies appear only in the dream. So it's only when we're dreaming that we seem to be a body. When we wake up from a dream, where is any body?
Mm-hmm. Michael, is there was such case when even Ramana was forced and beaten and robbed by and this was what was his explanation then? Because they wanted to chase the man, etc. But
a few days later, the police caught the thieves, and they brought the thieves before Bhagavan, and they asked Bhagavan to point out who had beaten him. And Bhagavan said, find out the one whom I have beaten. He is the one who has beaten me.
Thank you. Thank you.
All thanks to Bhagavan.
By the way, talking about Gurdjieff, because many people here are coming from Gurdjieff background, etc. This is very old idea of knowing, know thyself. It was written on the Delphi temple.
Yes, but what people understand by that, there are many different understandings of know thyself.
We somehow stay out of the picture and we know ourselves. So we are at least two in the game, or
we all know ourselves. We all know I am. But the trouble is now we know I am Milan, I am Michael. We need to know ourselves as we actually are. Because Milan and Michael are just appearances. There's nothing new for us to know. What we know already. But trouble is we've superimposed upon that this false awareness, I am Milan, I am Michael.
But what about beauty, about this beautiful music like Aranjuez, like sea, like Arunachala?
Yeah, it's
Are
all
we
part
saying
of the
that
dream.
this is invention of this bad ego?
It's all part of a dream.
It's all part of the dream, and we somehow fear that if dream stops, we are losing all the beauty of the world, not just we don't have the feeling that this beauty is killing us.
Where does all this beauty come from?
Our heart. By the
Yes. So if you know the heart, then you'll know the fullness of beauty. The beauty we see in this world is just partial beauty. If you want to see the fullness of beauty, you need to see the beauty of your own heart.
But there will be no Michael to share with. Now we can share the beauty of the Ramana's teaching and to
so
talk.
Long as they're sharing, there's more than one. So
Yes.
long as there's more than
Yes.
one, there's limitation.
And
In
even
that state of oneness, there's no one to share with because there's no one other. It's the state of fullness. In the state of there cannot be more than one infinite. If something is infinite, there cannot be anything other than it. So you are the infinite whole. If you know yourself as you actually are, that is the fullness of satisfaction, infinite happiness, infinite joy.
so Shunyam and Purnam are synonyms in the end. This is two ways to talk about one thing.
Yes. Or that's one way of putting it. Another way of putting it, there is only fullness.
So, because if it's Advaitam, there is no second. So
Yes,
you cannot.
yes. Yeah.
Thank you. We have this even in Ibn Arabi's talk, when Ibn Arabi was asked what you have to do in order to achieve union. He always said that there is no such thing like union, because union wants separation, so you are united with. But in fact,
separation is an appearance.
Yes, so there is no, it's union without union, because there is only one. So
Yes,
he says that God is and nothing is with him. There is and God is synonym there of being. So there is only being, and it was ever like that.
Yes.
Being and being alone.
Yes. And you are that.
And
so
you are
know yourself, and you will be that.
So
and
we
you
are
will
in a strange
experience
position.
yourself as that.
Can you say that we don't want it sincerely? Because if I want it sincerely, each of us
It's yours
can
here
say,
and now. If we really wanted it,
it will be in the moment. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
But we don't want it. We want to
because
feel...
we are not yet ready to let go of all this appearance. We are still too strongly attached to this false identity.
In Kashmiri Shaivism, they say, if you now you want to be liberated, who will stop you? You are Shiva.
Yeah.
So this means that you don't want it. You
Exactly,
want to
exactly.
play the game of separation in order to.
That is why Bhagavan said, Bhakti is the mother of jnana. Bhakti means love. We need to have all-consuming love. Then only we'll be willing to surrender ourselves.
But in order to have love, I have to have knowledge about this beauty and with safety in the Purnam.
And to get that knowledge, that clarity, you need to look within. The more you look within, the more clarity you will get, and the more love you will have to surrender yourself.
So the circle is closed, and even when we are saying that the fault is in us, it's in the end it's Brahman fault, because
No,
there is no other.
The fault is in you, and the solution is in you. Let's not blame Brahman. Poor Brahman, leave Brahman alone. Know yourself, and then
There is only one troublemaker. We are saying, yes.
There's only one troublemaker.
We
are that. Tatvamasi.
It's me.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Love.
Right. So, Chris, shall we bring it to an end now?
I think that's more than a day.
Yeah. Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya.